Hi, today I'm going to show you how to quickly and easily change the color of an object in Photoshop, either with or without selection tools. Okay, so let's start with the easiest way to do it. I've opened this photo here which has two red cherries, and in this case you don't even have to make a selection because the only thing in this picture that's red is the cherries. So the tool I like to use for this sort of job is down here. If you click on this circle shape and then scroll down to Selective Colour. Click on it, and now you see here in this drop-down menu that you have all these different colors, and you can affect only individual colors, which is super handy in this case because we can change only the reds, which would be only the cherries. Now you can simply move these sliders to change the reds however you want. And this really just takes a few seconds and already you've changed the color, for example, to purple or magenta. Now, if you want a more drastic color change, this tool probably won't be enough because as you can see, you can't really go away from that sort of magenta purpley range. So in that case, I'm going to use a different tool. So delete that layer again and go back to the menu down here and choose Hue Saturation. Again, here you can see in this drop-down menu that you can choose which color you want to affect. Sometimes, by the way, just a little tip, it might not be super obvious which color it is you're trying to change. So in that case, you can use this little tool here and then click on whatever you want to affect and it will tell you what color it is. So this is cyans, for example. This is yellows, even though you might think it's greens. That's why it can be helpful sometimes to use this. But let's stay with the cherries. So we're going to change the reds again. And here you can see on this hue slider, you can actually change the hue of these cherries now. And as you can see, you can go through the whole spectrum of color. Let's make them blue. And then you can increase or decrease the saturation as well and the lightness. So that's changing the color without having to make a selection, which is very nice and easy. Now I'm going to show you another example. Now in this photo, for example, if you wanted to change the red lipstick, you would run into a problem because there's a lot of red in the picture. Let me just show you. If I use Selective Colour again, and let's say I'm going to change the reds, suddenly everything is changed, not just the lipstick. In this case, you can simply make a selection. So I'll just delete this for the moment. Go to the Quick Selection tool up here in the left toolbar. And then let's see how that works. It doesn't always work straight away, but that's pretty good. If it doesn't do a perfect job just yet, you can always refine the selection. You could go up here to Select and Mask in the top bar. Then what I always like to do first is to scroll up here on the menu on the right side. And you see here where it says View, you can change it to a different style. So I like to use the on white. I just prefer this because I find that you can see better what you're actually doing. Okay, and so now if you wanted to refine the selection, you can use the brush tool here on the left. See this one? And then with the plus and minus brushes up here, you can either add to the selection or subtract from it. So let's pretend I wanted to add a bit. Then you can simply brush over the areas you want to add to the selection. It's just an example. The selection was actually very good, but I just wanted to show you this. Or you can then again subtract from it. And like this, you can create basically the perfect mask. Also, if you don't like the hard edge of the selection, you can always make it softer by feathering it. Here on the right side in the menu, you see these sliders here. You can feather it a bit, maybe a bit more. You can smooth it. So just play around with this until you're happy. And then last tip for this, if you go all the way down to Output 2, it's always defaulted to selection, but I like to change it to new layer and then click on it. And then you see that you get the selection on a new layer, which is just easier to work with, I find. Now this is quite a bad selection, but doesn't matter. It's just for this tutorial. Okay, let's toggle this back on. Okay, and now you can use the same tools we used before to change the color of the lipstick. Let me just show you one thing. If you now hit, let's say, Selective Color again, if you now were to just slide around, you see that again it's changing everything because you still have the background layer here active. So to make sure it only changes the colors of your selection, you can click on this little icon here at the bottom, and that clips the adjustment layer only to your selection. So now when you change this, it will only change the color of the lipstick and not of the whole background layer. Very handy. And the last thing I want to show you is if you wanted to completely change the color of something. There's another feature. Let me delete this. So let's go back to the Hue Saturation tool. Again, clip this to the selection only. And now, yes, you can use this hue slider, which works really well here actually. But sometimes it won't work that well. So what you can then do is click on Colorize, this little checkbox. And now you have a bit more control over what you're doing. So you can really be dramatic with the color changes. And this works really well for eye color or for hair color, for example. And then again, use these sliders to fine tune the hue. And that's that. And then one last thing, if you're trying to change the color of something a bit tricky to mask out, like hair, for example, there's always another way to mask it out, which is basically the manual way. I mean, you can use here, for example, you can use that quick selection tool and it will work a little bit, but then you have to mask out these areas and refine the selection. And with hair, I find that a bit tedious. So let me just deselect that. And what I then like to do is super simple, basically just create a manual mask. So let's pretend we wanted to change this hair color to a different color. I'm going to use hue saturation for that, change it to maybe this color. And now, of course, it's changed the color of the whole image. So make sure to invert that mask. So we're basically going to hide the changes for now. Make sure you selected the white mask here and then hit Command I or Control I on your keyboard. So now it's hidden our color changes. And then you just grab the brush tool on the left side here. Make sure it's very soft and also make sure it's on 100 opacity. Then you grab the white color. So down here, make sure it's on white. And now you can simply paint in the areas where you want the color to be changed. This takes a little longer maybe than making a selection, but I like to do it sometimes if the area is quite hard to mask out or if I just want full control. So you see that works really well. And then when you get to these border zones, that can be a bit tricky to do. So what I like to do is simply make the brush a bit bigger and then decrease the opacity to quite low, maybe around 30. And then carefully brush over these edge areas. And you see that kind of melts it in a bit. If you've gone overboard, just hit X on the keyboard to change the color back to black. Then you can hide the changes again and just toggle between white and black and try to get these kind of edges right. And if you're just careful with that and build it up slowly, you can usually get a very convincing color change, even on the hair. That's it. I hope you found this helpful and make sure to subscribe. Thank you.